The massive holographic chamber of the Galactic Council pulsed with an eerie blue light, casting long shadows across the faces of 1,000 alien representatives. Captain Jack Reyes stood motionless, his cybernetic eye scanning the room with a cold, calculated precision that belied the storm of emotions churning beneath his surface. 5 years of diplomatic negotiations had led to this moment. 5 years of humanity trying to prove they deserved a place among the stars. And now, everything would be decided in the next few moments. Ambassador Helena Chen, humanity's last hope, stood at the central podium. Her silver-trimmed diplomatic uniform was immaculate, but Jack could see the tension in her shoulders. The holographic displays behind her flickered with centuries of human achievements. Breakthrough medical technologies, revolutionary energy solutions, unprecedented ecological restoration projects. Yet none of that seemed to matter now. "The charges are clear," rumbled Krelax, the massive tentacled representative of the Andromeda Concordat. His translator projected a voice like grinding metal. "Humanity has demonstrated consistent disregard for galactic protocols. Your species represents an existential threat to the established order." Jack's cybernetic eye zoomed in, analyzing the micro-expressions of the alien delegates. Most were a mixture of fear and determination. The chlorophyllian representatives from the verdant cluster shifted uncomfortably, their photosynthetic skin rippling with barely contained anxiety. The silicon-based quartz collective remained absolutely still, their crystalline forms reflecting the chamber's blue light like living prisms. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood beside Jack, her fingers dancing across a holographic datapad. To an outside observer, she might have appeared calm, but Jack knew her well enough to recognize the calculations happening behind her eyes. She was already 10 steps ahead, mapping out contingencies that most would consider impossible. "Systematic violations," continued Krelax, "include unauthorized colonization of protected zones, unilateral technological developments that breach multiple interstellar treaties, and a consistent pattern of diplomatic unpredictability." Ambassador Chen's response was measured, but Jack could detect the razor's edge of barely contained fury. "These violations are nothing more than humanity's natural progression. We adapt. We innovate. We survive." A ripple of murmurs passed through the chamber. Some delegates looked uncomfortable. Others seemed almost predatory. The holographic displays behind Chen began to shift, showing humanity's most controversial moments. The successful terraforming of 3 previously uninhabitable planets, the development of faster-than-light communication systems that rendered existing galactic networks obsolete, the medical breakthrough that had effectively conquered cellular degeneration. Each achievement was a testament to human potential, and a source of terror for the established galactic powers. "Your species cannot be controlled," hissed the chlorophyllian representative. "You are a virus. Unpredictable. Destructive." Jack's cybernetic eye tracked the subtle power dynamics. He recognized the fear behind the accusations. Humanity wasn't just another species. They were a fundamental disruption to the galactic status quo. Elena leaned close to Jack, her voice a barely audible whisper. "They're going to do it. They're actually going to try to erase us." The chamber grew silent as the final vote approached. Holographic displays materialized, showing the real-time tallies. Each species would cast its vote, determining humanity's fate. Jack's hand unconsciously moved to the quantum disruptor concealed at his side, a weapon that represented humanity's most dangerous secret, a technology so advanced it could potentially rewrite the fundamental rules of physics. But this wasn't the moment to use it. Not yet. Ambassador Chen stood tall, her final statement cutting through the tension like a blade. "Humanity has always been defined by our ability to transform adversity into opportunity. Whatever you decide here today, know this: we will not be erased. We will not be forgotten." The voting began. One by one, the alien representatives cast their votes. The holographic displays transformed into a sea of crimson and azure, tracking the decisions that would determine humanity's future. Jack watched. Elena calculated. Helena stood resolute. And somewhere, In the vast network of hidden human colonies, preparations were already underway for a response that would shake the very foundations of galactic civilization. The vote was unanimous. Humanity was to be removed, completely, utterly, permanently. But they had no idea what was coming. The first evacuation ship screamed through the void of space, its hull bristling with technologies that defied conventional understanding. Maya Chen's fingers danced across the quantum navigation interface, her movements so fluid they seemed to blur the line between human and machine. Quantum signature masking at 98.7%. She called out, her voice steadied, despite the weight of humanity's survival resting on her shoulders. They won't detect us unless they're looking directly at us. Around her, the ship's interior was a marvel of compressed human potential. Every square meter was optimized, every system a testament to humanity's ability to transform limitation into opportunity. Refugees from a dozen different human colonies filled the vessel. Scientists, engineers, artists, soldiers, not survivors, architects of a new beginning. Captain Jack Reyes moved through the crowded compartments, his cybernetic eye constantly scanning, analyzing, calculating. The evacuation wasn't just a retreat, it was the first phase of a plan years in the making. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the ship's primary strategy hub, a holographic display of human colonies spreading out before her like a three-dimensional star chart. Each point represented more than a location. It was a node in a complex network of resistance and renewal. "They think they've cut off our head," Elena muttered, her fingers tracing potential migration routes. "They have no idea we're a Hydra." The evacuation had been planned for years, a secret project codenamed Phoenix. Hidden colony ships, technological cages, and strategic resources had been carefully distributed across multiple star systems. The Galactic Council's declaration wasn't an end, it was a beginning. A young engineer named Raj Patel approached Elena, holding a compact device that seemed to pulse with an inner light. "The quantum entanglement communication network is coming online," he reported. "We can maintain contact between colonies without any detectable signal." Elena's smile was razor-sharp. "Let them try to silence us." On the bridge, Maya tracked the first wave of evacuation ships. 12 primary vessels, each carrying between 5,000 and 10,000 humans. But these weren't just transport ships. They were mobile research stations, technological incubators, living libraries of human knowledge and potential. Jack watched a display showing the initial escape routes. Galactic Council tracking systems will be looking for massive energy signatures, he explained to a group of young colonists. "So we're going to give them exactly what they expect." And then disappear. A massive holographic projection showed the projected paths of the evacuation fleet. To an untrained eye, it might have looked like a random scatter of points. But each trajectory was a carefully calculated dance, designed to confuse, misdirect, and ultimately vanish. The first true test came 2 standard solar cycles into the Exodus. A Galactic Council patrol fleet, massive crystalline ships that looked more like moving asteroids than vessels, began a systematic search pattern. "Incoming," Maya called out, her voice calm. "Threat assessment, high-level interdiction protocol." Elena didn't even look up from her calculations. "Execute Phantom Protocol." The human ships didn't run. They didn't hide. Instead, they transformed. Quantum camouflage systems bent light and energy around the vessels. Molecular reconfiguration modules allowed hulls to shift composition, mimicking surrounding space debris. Energy signatures became indistinguishable from the background radiation of deep space. The Galactic Council patrol passed within kilometers of the human fleet and detected nothing. "They're looking right at us," Raj whispered, watching the alien ships on the long-range scanners. "And they can't see a thing." Jack moved to the primary communication hub, where a network of quantum-entangled communication devices allowed instantaneous contact between the scattered human colonies. Information, resources, strategic updates, all transmitted through a network that made traditional communication look like smoke signals. "First wave is clear," he announced. "Begin phase 2 of the migration." Elena's holographic display showed the next stage of their plan. It wasn't just about escape. It was about preparation. Each colony ship carried specialized teams: xenobiologists, quantum engineers, adaptive warfare specialists. They weren't just running. They were evolving. As the last of the ships completed their initial jump, Maya Chen allowed herself a momentary smile. The Galactic Council thought they were erasing humanity. Instead, they had just scattered the most dangerous seeds in the universe. "We're not going extinct," she whispered to herself. "We're going to become something they can't even imagine." The exodus continued. Humanity's greatest journey was just beginning. The research facility hung in space, like a crystalline spider web, its modular structures shifting and realigning with each passing moment. Dr. Aria Nakamura stood at the central nexus, her augmented neural interface pulsing with raw computational power that would have made pre-exile human scientists weep with wonder. "Quantum adaptive matrix is stabilizing," she called out, her voice cutting through the hum of experimental equipment. "We're approaching breakthrough." Around her, the most brilliant minds humanity had ever produced worked in a symphony of innovation. This wasn't just a research station. It was the crucible where humanity would forge its survival into something beyond mere existence. Captain Jack Rice watched from the observation deck, his cybernetic eye capturing every microscopic detail of the ongoing experiments. The facility represented humanity's most ambitious project yet: total technological reinvention. The Zorn listening post they had infiltrated months ago continued to feed them critical data. Each piece of alien technology they studied was quickly transformed, adapted, made fundamentally human. Where other species saw limitations, humans saw opportunities for radical innovation. Raj Patel, the quantum communication specialist from the Exodus fleet, was debugging a new type of faster-than-light communication system. Unlike traditional FTL communication that relied on predictable quantum entanglement, his system would create communication channels that were literally impossible to track or intercept. "It's not just about sending a message," Raj explained to a group of young researchers. "It's about creating communication pathways that don't even exist until the moment of transmission." Dr. Elena Rodriguez moved between research stations, her strategic mind seeing the broader implications of each breakthrough. A biomechanical augmentation here, a quantum computing module there. Each innovation was a piece of a larger puzzle, the reconstruction of human technological capabilities. The most radical project was happening in the facility's most secure section. Project Adaptive Warfare, a program designed to transform human soldiers into living, breathing adaptive systems. Major Sarah Corey stood perfectly still as nanite systems rewove her biological structure. Traditional augmentations were crude modifications. This was something entirely different, a complete reimagining of human physical potential. Synaptic integration at 72%, a medical AI reported. Cellular restructuring proceeding within acceptable parameters. Sarah could already feel the changes. Her perception expanded beyond normal human limitations. Micromuscular systems that could recalibrate instantaneously. Neural pathways that could process information faster than any known biological system. She wasn't becoming a machine. She was becoming something more. Jack watched the procedure, understanding its deeper significance. The Galactic Council had tried to erase humanity. Instead, they had triggered the most profound evolutionary leap in the species' history. "We're not just adapting," he muttered. "We're transcending." In another section of the facility, Maya Chen worked on spacecraft metamorphosis technologies. The days of fixed design vessels were over. These new ships would be living systems, able to reconfigure their molecular structures mid-flight, transforming from transport to combat vessel in milliseconds. A holographic display showed early test results. A prototype ship successfully transformed its hull density, molecular structure, and energy configuration 17 times in a single second. Each transformation was smoother, more precise than the last. "They said we were unpredictable," Maya said, a slight smile crossing her face. They haven't seen anything yet. Dr. Nakamura's primary project was perhaps the most ambitious. A computational system that could predict complex probabilistic scenarios with near-perfect accuracy. Not just military strategies, entire societal developments, technological trajectories, potential evolutionary paths. Humanity's greatest weapon, she often said, has always been our ability to see beyond the immediate, to understand potential. The facility itself was a testament to that potential. Modular sections that could detach and reassemble, energy systems that drew power from quantum fluctuations, communication networks that existed in theoretical spaces between traditional signal transmission. As the first successful tests completed, a sense of anticipation filled the facility. They weren't just developing new technologies. They were rewriting the fundamental rules of what was possible. Jack's cybernetic eye captured a moment of pure potential, researchers celebrating a breakthrough, their movements captured in a holographic freeze frame that seemed to vibrate with raw possibility. The Galactic Council thought they had ended humanity. They had no idea they had just unleashed something far more dangerous. The technological metamorphosis was complete, and it was just the beginning. The quantum virus moved like a ghost through the galactic communication networks. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the holographic displays, her fingers dancing across quantum adaptive interfaces that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. Asset Crimson is in position, whispered Maya Chen from the communication hub. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with a strategic intensity that would have terrified the Galactic Council had they understood its depth. This was humanity's first true counterattack. Not a military assault, not a violent confrontation, but a war fought in the invisible realms of information, economics, and systemic disruption. The first target was the Andromedan Trade Consortium, a massive economic network that controlled nearly 40% of interstellar commerce. Their systems were considered impenetrable, protected by quantum encryption that had remained unbroken for 3 centuries. It took humanity less than 17 minutes to completely destabilize their entire network. Stock markets across multiple star systems began to fluctuate wildly. Trade routes became labyrinthine puzzles. Communication channels developed mysterious, intermittent failures that defied conventional diagnostic methods. Jack Reyes monitored the operation from the primary strategy center, his cybernetic eye tracking multiple information streams simultaneously. Precision is key, he reminded the team. We're not destroying, we're demonstrating. The goal wasn't total economic collapse. It was to show the Galactic Council that humanity could reach into the most protected systems with surgical precision. A warning, a demonstration of capability. Raj Patel had developed the quantum virus using principles that most alien scientists would have considered pure fantasy. It wasn't just a piece of code. It was a living, adaptive system that could modify itself in real time, learning and evolving faster than any defensive algorithm could track. They build walls, Raj would often say. We find the spaces between the bricks. In the Verdant cluster, the primary communication hub of the Chlorophyllian diplomatic network suddenly found itself broadcasting random fragments of intercepted communications. Nothing was damaged. Nothing was destroyed. But the psychological impact was devastating. Imagine a communication network where you could never be certain if your message was private, where every transmission might contain fragments of conversations from across the galaxy. The Quartz Collective's financial modeling systems began producing projections so wildly unpredictable that their entire economic planning infrastructure ground to a halt. Not through destruction, through pure, mathematically perfect chaos. We're not hackers, Elena explained to Jack during a brief moment of reflection. We're cartographers of possibility. We're showing them the maps they never knew existed. Each attack was carefully calibrated. Minimal damage. Maximum psychological impact. On a remote mining colony in the Epsilon Quadrant, trade agreements that had stood for centuries suddenly became inexplicably complex. Shipping routes that had been established for generations now required navigational recalculations that consumed enormous computational resources. Maya's quantum communication network allowed the human resistance to coordinate these actions with a precision that bordered on supernatural. Information flowed between their scattered colonies faster than light, encrypted in ways that made traditional interception impossible. Major Sarah Curry, now fully integrated with her adaptive augmentations, managed the human intelligence gathering. Her enhanced perceptual abilities allowed her to process and analyze information streams that would have overwhelmed multiple alien analysis teams. "They're looking for a military response," she reported, her voice carrying a hint of dark humor. "We're giving them an existential crisis instead." The Galactic Council's emergency sessions became increasingly frantic. How do you fight an enemy that doesn't attack in any traditional sense? An enemy that seems to exist everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Jack understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't just about demonstrating technological superiority. It was about showing the other species a fundamental truth about humanity. We adapt. We evolve. We transform challenges into opportunities. As the first phase of the Silent War concluded, the message was clear. Humanity might have been exiled, but they were far from defeated. In fact, they were just getting started. The first direct confrontation came in the Sigma Crucis system, where a fleet of Zorn battlecruisers thought they had cornered the last remnants of human resistance. They were wrong. Major Sarah Corey stood on the bridge of the HMS Prometheus, her augmented body a living weapon system that redefined the very concept of military capability. The ship around her was no mere vessel. It was an extension of human innovative potential, a living organism of technological marvel. "Incoming Zorn fleet," announced Maya Chen from the Quantum Communication Hub. 16 primary battlecruisers, conventional weapons systems at maximum deployment. Jack Rice's voice cut through the communication channel. "Remember, we're not just fighting. We're teaching a lesson." The Zorn battlecruisers were marvels of traditional military engineering. Massive crystalline structures that could slice through conventional defenses like paper. Each vessel was a monument to centuries of refined military technology. Impenetrable. Unstoppable. Or so they thought. Sarah's augmented neural interface connected directly with the Prometheus's systems. She wasn't controlling the ship. She was becoming the ship. Molecular adaptive modules began to reconfigure the vessel's structure in real time, transforming its very molecular composition faster than any targeting system could track. The first Zorn weapons discharge should have obliterated the human vessel. Instead, the energy dissipated across a hull that seemed to shimmer and shift, becoming transparent, then impossibly dense, then something entirely beyond traditional matter. "Adaptive camouflage at 99.7%, reported the ship's eye. "Weapon absorption capabilities optimal." Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from the remote strategy center, her fingers tracing potential combat trajectories that looked more like abstract art than military planning. "It's not about winning," she murmured. "It's about redefining the entire concept of conflict." The Zorn commander, a massive crystalline entity named Krasnak, couldn't comprehend what was happening. Their most advanced targeting systems showed the human vessel in 1,000 contradictory positions simultaneously. It was present. It was absent. It was everywhere and nowhere. Sarah's augmented body processed combat scenarios at speeds that would have fried a traditional biological nervous system. Each movement was a calculated dance, each defensive action a lesson in strategic unpredictability. The Prometheus didn't just avoid weapons. It absorbed them, transformed them, redirected them with a precision that bordered on the mystical. Raj Patel's quantum communication network allowed instantaneous coordination between human vessels. What appeared to be random movements were actually a complex, living strategy that adapted faster than any conventional military doctrine could comprehend. "They're not fighting like a military," one Zorn tactical officer reported in growing panic. "They're fighting like a living system." Which was exactly the point. 12 minutes into the confrontation, The Zorn fleet found itself in complete disarray, not through destruction, through fundamental confusion. Their most advanced weapon systems were being turned into elaborate magic tricks, redirected with a playful, almost contemptuous precision. Major Curry's augmented body moved in synchronization with the ship. Her enhanced perceptual systems saw potential trajectories that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously. A weapon fired here could be absorbed, redirected, transformed into something entirely unexpected. Jack's strategic overview showed the broader picture. This wasn't just a battle. It was a demonstration. A message written in the language of physics and possibility. "We are not what you think we are," the battle seemed to say. "We are something else entirely." The final moment came when the Prometheus didn't just defeat the Zorn fleet. It essentially rewrote the fundamental parameters of the engagement. Weapon energy was redirected. Defensive systems were transformed into offensive capabilities. The very laws of combat were being rewritten in real time. As the last Zorn battle cruiser retreated, its systems in complete disarray, Sarah allowed herself the briefest moment of satisfaction. The Galactic Council had tried to erase humanity. They were about to learn that humanity was not a species to be erased. We were a force of nature. The data transmission arrived like a whisper, but it would soon become a hurricane. Dr. Elena Rodriguez studied the holographic display, her fingers tracing the intricate web of information that would unravel entire civilizations. This wasn't just about exposing secrets. It was about fundamentally reshaping the galactic understanding of power, truth, and perception. Raj Patel had developed a quantum communication network so advanced it could slip through the most secure information barriers like smoke through a closed fist. "Information is just another form of energy," he would often say. "And energy can always be redirected." The first target was the Chlorophyllian Diplomatic Consortium, a species known for their intricate political networks and seemingly impenetrable communication systems. What they didn't know was that humanity had been studying their infrastructure for months, mapping every subtle nuance of their societal communication. Jack Reyes watched from the strategy center, his cybernetic eye tracking multiple information streams simultaneously. "We're not destroying," he reminded the team. "We're revealing." The initial data burst was surgical. Intercepted communications that revealed decades of secret negotiations. Diplomatic agreements that contradicted public statements. Hidden environmental destruction that directly opposed the Chlorophyllians' carefully crafted public image. But this was more than simple exposure. Each piece of information was carefully contextualized, designed to create maximum psychological impact with minimal direct intervention. Maya Chen managed the information distribution, her quantum communication systems ensuring that the data would spread in ways that defied traditional information control. One moment, a secret would be confined to a single diplomatic channel. The next, it would be everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. In the Quartz Collective's central governance hub, entire administrative systems ground to a halt, not through technological destruction, but through a complete crisis of informational integrity. How do you govern when every assumption you've made is suddenly called into question? Major Sarah Curry oversaw the human intelligence gathering. Her augmented perceptual systems could process and analyze information streams that would have overwhelmed multiple alien analysis teams. She understood that true warfare was fought in the realm of perception long before the first weapon was fired. "We're not just exposing secrets," she explained to a group of young strategists. "We're demonstrating the fundamental fragility of power based on manipulation." The Verdant Cluster's communication networks became a labyrinth of contradictory information. Diplomatic channels that had stood for centuries suddenly found themselves broadcasting fragments of conversations from across the galaxy. Nothing was destroyed. Nothing was truly damaged. But the psychological impact was devastating. Imagine a communication network where you could never be certain if your message was private, where every transmission might contain unexpected revelations. Elena's strategic genius was evident in how each piece of information was carefully selected and positioned. This wasn't about chaos. It was about precision. Each revelation was a carefully placed domino in a massive, galaxy-wide chain reaction. The Andromedan Trade Consortium found its most secure diplomatic channels suddenly compromised, not through technological invasion, but through a fundamental reimagining of information flow. Conversations meant to be private became public. Strategic negotiations became subject to instant, galaxy-wide scrutiny. Raj's quantum communication systems ensured that the information spread in ways that defied traditional understanding. One moment, a secret would be confined to a single channel. The next, it would be everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Jack understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't just about exposing corruption. It was about showing the other species a fundamental truth about humanity. We see the connections others miss. We understand the power of information. As the first phase of the psychological warfare concluded, the message was clear. The Galactic Council had tried to marginalize humanity. Instead, they had unleashed something far more dangerous than any military force, a species that could see the truth hiding between the lines of reality. The real war was just beginning. The assault on the Galactic Council's core administrative centers began not with a weapon, but with a whisper of quantum data. Major Sarah Curry stood on the bridge of the HMS Prometheus, her augmented body humming with a potential that blurred the line between biological and technological. Around her, the ship was more than a vessel. It was a living extension of human innovation, ready to rewrite the fundamental rules of engagement. Quantum infiltration networks are online. Maya Chen reported from the communication hub, her fingers dancing across interfaces that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. We're going to give them a demonstration they'll never forget. The plan was elegant in its complexity. This wasn't a traditional assault. It was a surgical strike designed to demonstrate humanity's capabilities without total destruction. Each human vessel was a precision instrument, each movement calculated with a mathematical perfection that bordered on the mystical. Dr. Elena Rodriguez oversaw the strategic overview, her holographic displays showing multiple layers of potential trajectories. Remember, she communicated to the fleet, "We're not here to destroy. We're here to transform." Jack Rice's voice cut through the communication channels. Primary targets are information centers. Disable, not demolish. Show them what we're capable of. The first wave of the assault was invisible. Quantum communication networks began to subtly reconfigure the Galactic Council's most secure systems. Firewalls that had stood for centuries became porous. Secure communication channels began to leak information in ways that defied conventional understanding. Raj Patel's quantum communication hack was the linchpin. He didn't just break into the systems, he rewrote their fundamental operational protocols. Imagine a lock that not only opened but temporarily forgot how to exist as a lock. The Zorn battlecruisers that had been hunting human vessels found themselves suddenly blind. Their most advanced tracking systems became a labyrinth of contradictory information. Ships that should have been visible disappeared. Locations became quantum probabilities rather than fixed points. Sarah's augmented body moved in synchronization with the Prometheus, her enhanced perceptual systems seeing potential trajectories that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously. A weapon fired here could be absorbed, redirected, transformed into something entirely unexpected. The physical insertion teams moved with a precision that seemed to defy physical limitations. Led by Jack Rice, they weren't just soldiers. They were living proof of humanity's evolutionary potential. Biotechnological augmentations allowed them to move through secured zones like living shadows, collecting and redistributing information with surgical precision. "We're cartographers of possibility," Jack would often say. "We're showing them the maps they never knew existed." At the core of the Galactic Council's primary administrative station, the human teams began their most delicate operation. Not destruction, not theft, but a fundamental recalibration of informational infrastructure. Secure databases found themselves subtly transformed. Not corrupted, modified. Strategic information was not erased but contextualized. Decades of hidden negotiations, suppressed technological developments, concealed ecological disasters, all brought into the light of galactic scrutiny. Maya's quantum communication network allowed for coordination that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Information flowed between human operatives faster than light, encrypted in ways that made traditional interception impossible. The most critical moment came when the human teams gained access to the Council's primary strategic archives. These weren't just databases. They were the accumulated knowledge of multiple galactic civilizations, kept under the most secure protection imaginable. Elena watched the data streams with a mathematical precision that was almost musical. Each piece of information was carefully analyzed, its potential impact calculated to multiple decimal places. As the operation concluded, the message was clear. The Galactic Council had attempted to erase humanity. Instead, they had unleashed a force that could rewrite the fundamental rules of galactic interaction. The turning point had arrived. Humanity was no longer a species to be controlled. We were becoming something else entirely. The reconstruction began not with weapons, but with a single holographic transmission. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the newly formed Galactic Collaborative Council, her presence both a challenge and an invitation. Behind her, the holographic displays showed the intricate web of human achievements, technological breakthroughs, ecological restorations, and societal innovations that had been hidden from galactic view for decades. "We are not here to conquer," she began, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's transformative potential. "We are here to collaborate." The chamber, a massive spherical structure orbiting a neutral star system, was filled with representatives from species that had, mere months ago, voted to erase humanity from existence. Now, they sat in stunned silence. Jack Reyes stood to her left, his cybernetic eye scanning the room with a mixture of strategic calculation and barely contained hope. Major Sarah Khoury flanked her right side, a living testament to human adaptive potential. Maya Chen and Raj Patel managed the complex quantum communication systems that made this moment possible. The data they had extracted from the Galactic Council's archives was more than just information. It was a key to understanding the fundamental flaws in the existing galactic governance model. For centuries, Elena continued, we've operated under a model of control and limitation. What we're proposing is a framework of collaborative evolution. The holographic displays began to shift. Technological innovations that humanity had developed during their exile were revealed, not as weapons, but as solutions to long-standing galactic challenges. Clean energy systems that could revitalize dying planetary ecosystems. Communication technologies that could bridge linguistic and cultural divides. Medical breakthroughs that could extend life and reduce suffering across multiple species. Krelax, the massive tentacled representative who had once led the charge to exile humanity, now looked smaller, diminished not by physical size, but by the weight of revealed truths. Your species was never a threat, he said, his translator struggling to convey the complexity of his emotions. You were the evolutionary catalyst we didn't understand. Sarah Khoury stepped forward, her augmented body a living demonstration of human adaptive potential. We're not asking for forgiveness, she said. We're offering collaboration. The quantum communication network that Maya and Raj had developed allowed for unprecedented levels of transparent communication. No more hidden negotiations. No more secret treaties. Every interaction would be open, adaptable, evolving. Jack's strategic overview showed the broader implications. This wasn't just about human reintegration. It was about fundamentally reimagining galactic cooperation. Technological sharing became mandatory, not through forced compliance, but through a new framework of mutual benefit. The chlorophyllian ecological restoration technologies would combine with human adaptive engineering. The Quartz Collective's computational systems would merge with human quantum communication networks. We're not looking to lead, Elena explained. We're looking to participate, to grow, to evolve together. The most radical proposal came from an unexpected source. Humanity suggested a complete restructuring of the galactic governance model. No more static bureaucracies. Instead, a dynamic, adaptive system that could respond to challenges in real time. Raj's quantum communication systems demonstrated how such a system might work, information flowing like a living organism, adapting, changing, growing. The representatives from various species looked at one another. The humans weren't conquering. They were inviting. As the first collaborative agreements were drafted, something fundamental changed. The galaxy itself seemed to take a collective breath. Humanity had been exiled with the intention of being erased. Instead, they had become the architects of a new galactic paradigm. Jack looked at Alina, a smile crossing his face. "We're not done," he said quietly. "We're just getting started." The universe watched and waited.